So today I'm going to talk about my mare, in particular Ziggy, who is behind me. I just want to go through a little bit of her and what she's been going through over the last few months, really. I bought her, or took her on initially, and then bought her as a coming 5-year-old. At the time she was very, very weak and poor in condition, extremely anxious in temperament as well. She needed to be fed up, but at the same time she needed to keep her stress levels down. It was very difficult to find the right feed balance for her because she wasn't eating either, through her anxiousness. And I did try a particular brand of conditioning balance and type cubes. She didn't like it at all and she wouldn't eat it, so that really went beyond the board for her. Until I came across another brand which I have used previously and had great success with. Although this particular balancer was based on young horses in particular, rather than the adult side of things, I thought, well, I'll give it a go, and she liked it, she ate it, and it seemed to work. Now, I'm not a big believer in overfeeding horses. I think people tend to overfeed far too much, far more than they need to. I do believe in high fibre, less grain, unless you need it for energy, of course, and if you need more condition, then you feed them accordingly to however they are, temperament, body-wise, etc. I generally feed just a plain Alpha A, a cool mix, and then the balancer, which I put on top. But with Ziggy, she's been, as I said, on this balancer for quite a long time. It worked for her. However, last year, she was turned away for a little while in the summer, like I often give her a bit of a break. She then injured herself, which gave her more time off than normal. I had a lot of horses myself to ride, so I tended to put her on a bit of a back burner on the side, and I completely blame myself for that because she wasn't doing enough work for the amount of feed that she was getting. She ballooned and she went quite a lot stockier than she normally is. I wouldn't have said gross, but enough weight on her. And as you can see in the background, she's not a heavy stamp of horse. She is a fine breed. She's a pure warm blood, but she is very fine. Come just before Christmas, she suddenly went crippled, absolutely crippled. She didn't want to move. She had the typical laminitis stance. My heart sank and I just felt the worst. Got her x-rayed and checked out by the vets, confirmed she did have laminitis. I was very lucky, there was no rotation there at all. She had all the bloods done, everything came back negative. So there was nothing that was triggering it off. She wasn't stressed out at the time. So I thought, okay, what could it have been? It could only have been that balancer that I had her on, which was high in protein, starch, etc., etc. She wasn't doing enough work to work it off. So I took her off of it immediately and she's not been back on it since. Now, I'm not completely, entirely blaming that, but I do blame a lot of products being overfed more than they need to. If she was in full work like she was previously, she probably would have been absolutely fine. I now have her on a special supplement for laminitis, and that seems to have worked for her fantastically. She still has signs of laminitis, however she is sound, she's happy, she's out in the field at night now, whereas before she could only go out for 1-2 hours maximum. She was being ridden for say 10 minutes at a time at one point, but I felt that her angles of her coronets were changing slightly, so I got a re-x-ray and confirmed that there was very, very mild changes, but nothing to any consequence really, too major. So the farrier cut her feet back even more, and she's been great ever since. She is still on her road to recovery, but she is literally on the minimalist of feeds, no sugar, no anything. She just has a supplement for her vitamins and minerals for her daily intake, and the laminitis supplement, which seems to work for her. But the point I'm trying to make is that I think people need to be more aware of what they're feeding their horses, and I think little is better than more. I think people really do overfeed their horses more than they need to, and I think it's something that people should be aware to keep an eye on their horses more than they perhaps would normally. and look up your feed sacks. What are you feeding your horses at the end of the day? You know, I think people need to feed a lot less than what they need, unless they need it for energy. If they're doing high strong competition like eventing, it's obviously the horse needs more, but if you're working it off, that's slightly different. But I think it's definitely something that people should look into, really.